On a quiet morning long ago, when the sun rose softly over the African sky, the people of the land we now call Nigeria woke up to a strange sight. Far beyond the waves, huge ships with tall white sails were gliding toward the shore like floating mountains. The people stared in surprise, not knowing that the strangers inside those ships would change their land forever. Nobody knew that the world they understood, the kingdoms they lived in, and the freedom they enjoyed were about to be challenged by a distant empire. In those days, Nigeria was not one country. It was many powerful kingdoms. There were the Yoruba kingdoms in the west, with busy markets, talking drums, and wise rulers. There were the Hausa and Fulani kingdoms in the north, filled with horses, traders, and strong emirs. The Igbo villages in the east were full of unity, courage, and hard-working people. And many other groups lived across the land, each with their own festivals, gods, and traditions. Everyone lived under their own kings and laws, and each kingdom was proud and strong in its own way. Meanwhile, far away in a cold land called Britain, powerful men were making plans. The British Empire wanted more land, more power, and more wealth. They looked at Africa on their maps and their eyes stopped on the rich region now known as Nigeria. They wanted the palm oil, the gold, the ivory, the fertile land, and the trade routes. They wanted control. And so they set their eyes on Nigeria, not as a friend, but as a prize. When the British first arrived, they came with bright smiles. They said they came in peace. They said they wanted friendship. They brought mirrors, clothes, guns, and alcohol to trade, and the Nigerians traded ivory, palm oil, spices, and sadly at that time some leaders traded slaves. But deep inside the British hearts, a secret plan was growing. They were not here only to trade. They wanted to rule. Slowly, like a shadow moving quietly, the British plan began. They built trading posts along the coasts. They made small agreements with local chiefs. They passed treaties written in English that many chiefs could not read or fully understand. Some of these treaties were tricks. One famous one was signed by Oba Dosunmu of Lagos in 1861. The British said it was only a friendship agreement, but it actually gave them full control of Lagos. That was the first big step in their conquest. Once they took Lagos, the British started spreading inland. They went to the Niger Delta and said they wanted to stop illegal trade, but in truth they wanted palm oil for themselves. When local kings resisted British control, the British used force. One of the saddest moments was the destruction of the Great Benin Kingdom in 1897. Benin was strong, rich, and proud, but the British wanted its power. They attacked the city, burned it, and carried away thousands of priceless Benin bronze artworks that still sit in foreign museums today. The fall of Benin sent fear across the entire region. Everyone now understood the British were not playing. They were taking over. When the British reached the northern kingdoms, they found powerful empires and strong armies. So they used a different idea. They told the emirs that they could keep their thrones, their palaces, and their titles, but they had to obey British laws. Some emirs refused and were removed. Some agreed. Little by little, the British gained control over the north without fighting many battles. It was clever, quiet, and effective. Nigeria did not fall because the people were weak. Nigeria fell because the British had stronger guns, bigger ships, faster communication, and secret plans. While Nigerian kingdoms were busy fighting each other over land, power, and trade, the British were quietly gathering everything under one empire. Nigeria was rich and divided, and the British took advantage of that. The British continued their takeover using tricks. They practiced divide and rule. Chiefs gained power. Old customs were pushed aside. New customs entered the land. Nigeria was becoming something new, something different from what it had been for centuries. But even in the darkest times, seeds of hope were growing. A new generation of educated Nigerians began to rise. These young men and women had gone to British schools, but they used their knowledge to fight for freedom. People like Herbert Macaulay, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello, and Funmilayo Ransome Kuti began to speak loudly. They wrote newspapers. They held meetings. They organized protests. They told the British that Nigeria deserved to rule itself. They spread fire in the hearts of the people. When World War II came, many Nigerians were sent to fight for the British in faraway lands like Burma and India. They fought bravely. But when they came back home, they looked around and asked themselves, if we were brave enough to fight in a world war, why are we not brave enough to rule our own land? Their courage inspired the independence movement even more. By the 1950s, the British could see that Nigeria would not remain silent. Protests grew stronger. Voices grew louder. Nigerian leaders traveled to London for meetings, arguing and demanding full control of their land. After years of pressure, the British finally agreed to step back. Slowly, power was returned to Nigerians. Then came the night of October 1, 1960. All across Nigeria, people gathered. Hearts were beating like drums. Eyes were filled with tears. At midnight, the British flag was lowered. The green-white-green Nigerian flag rose high into the air. People shouted with joy. Fireworks lit up the sky. Drums played from village to village. Dancers filled the streets. After many long years of British rule, Nigeria was finally free. And even though the British had controlled the land for decades, they did not break the Nigerian spirit. The people kept their culture, their languages, their music, their pride, and their strength. Nigeria stood up again, proud and alive. The story of how the British dominated Nigeria is not only a story of pain. It is also a story of courage. A story of people who never stopped fighting. A story of a land that refused to stay down. A story of a great nation that rose again. Nigeria survived. Nigeria rose. Nigeria lives on.